Today I'd like to tell you all the saga of a band that was around in the 80s and 90s and into the aughts. And I found it very interesting and rather amusing to hear about this band. And you've probably heard of them if you were paying attention to popular music at around the time of the early aughts. They were called Lit at the time, and they had a song called My Own Worst Enemy. It's no surprise to me I am my own worst enemy, because every now and then I kick the living shit out of me, being the line that's most memorable. It was a good song, and they had a couple of other hits around that time, or minor hits. So they were doing all right at around that time, but they struggled up to that point. And that's what I found to be really interesting when I found out about the history of this band. So first of all, they were around in the mid to late 80s, I guess. That was when they first came on the scene, and they were at the time, metalheads. They had grown up listening to Ozzy Osbourne and Iron Maiden, and they were into metal, and metal was this really trendy thing at the time. What gets called hair metal now. So they formed their own metal band, and they called themselves Razzle. That was their name. Like Razzle. like it's like yeah, Razzle. Kind of a metalish connoting name. I guess sort of connoting this partying and being spectacular, razzle dazzle, and you can just hear the guitar solo, the obnoxious guitar solo. So then they were doing pretty well with this metal thing, and then the 90s came around, and those of you old enough to remember this will remember this extraordinary period of popular culture as far as the music scene goes. I certainly remember it very well. How around 1991, suddenly metal was just nowhere. Like, nobody listened to metal anymore, for the most part. I guess there were bands like Metallica, and maybe a couple of other, more sort of, how shall I say, like kind of established, respected bands that made it through this lean period. But there was no more interest in, the heavy metal aesthetics anymore. So people, bands that wore spandex and had, eye makeup and had, long poofy hair and were banging their heads, that suddenly was just nowhere. That scene was nowhere. It had been replaced by grunge. Grunge was the new thing. And so these lads, these LA lads, they were straight out of Orange County. In the midst of it all, they saw the scene change, and suddenly they couldn't be Razzle anymore. They couldn't be Razzle because that just wasn't cool. So they changed. they just up and transformed and said, "Oh, we're going to be a grunge band now." And so now, instead of being Razzle, they became Stained. We're stained. Stained, yeah. So that was their new thing. was Stained, which connoted this sort of a more moody, kind of depressed aesthetic that was grunge. And so instead of wearing the spandex anymore, they started just wearing like jeans and corduroy, and like not corduroy, sorry, and flannel shirts, of course, and just looking like just looking like the grunge musicians of the period, which is sort of like looking sloppy and just not really caring that much about your appearance, except that your appearance still was very cultivated. It was just it was cultivated to look a certain way, like you just didn't care, and like you were depressed, and so they were Stained for a little while, but they didn't quite break through as Stained. Success was always sort of, right there on the horizon, but it was eluding them. So then, 95, 96, 97, these years roll around, and now grunge has gone the way of the dodo. There's no more grunge anymore. And the new thing is what gets called pop punk. Bands like Green Day, and the Offspring, although the Offspring started out as grunge, but they also made the transition to to pop punk around this period. Blink 182, Sum 41. There's a lot of numbers with these pop punk acts, and the idea was to have this kind of punkish kind of attitude, punk light kind of attitude, but have songs with catchy hooks and stuff. So it was loud, but it was also poppy, and a lot of pop punk I sort of like, I'll admit, more than I like grunge or metal. That's just my own preference. So, but in any case, Stained was like, oh, we can't play loud. First we were trying to play loud guitar music and be, sexy and cool, and metal, and then we were trying to play, slower paced, more depressing, loud guitar music, and just be all sad and pouty all the time about their mental state. But now they've got to be like lively and happy, but also sort of pissed off, but not too pissed off. The sort of balance that is the pop punk formula. A little bit of pissed off, not too much, but also a good dose of just catchy hooks and choruses and some harmonies and stuff like that. So that's when they decided to become Lit. So they went, and there's something to me that's just so funny about how they were just chasing whatever the trends were. Where's the soul? Where's the core soul of these guys? If they liked metal, if that was what they were embracing at first, why didn't they just stay with that? And ride it out. But they didn't. They became grunge, and then after grunge became passé, they became pop punk. And it was with Lit that they achieved some success, as I said. But it seems that after they had success with their first album, they had some things at the first album as Lit, they had some things go wrong, and eventually, they were their next album didn't sell quite as well, and And so they were sort of losing ground as lit, and then they made a transition, the weirdest transition of all. They moved east to Nashville and became part of the country scene. Because somewhere in the 2010s, you couldn't really do white people music on popular on pop radio. You couldn't do guitar based songs. It was like everything was R&B flavored or rap flavored, and so and like the more rockin' bands were no longer in like the top 40 range for whatever reason. I don't know why these things happen. The tastemakers just decide to make the taste, the taste of the culture different, to suit their own ends, probably. I mean, there's probably a lot of that goes into it, and there's probably some other things that are less contrived. So they ended up in Nashville. So it's just wild. So if you doubt what I'm saying, if you think I'm exaggerating, or if you think I'm giving this band too much grief, I'll provide the link below where you can see for yourself the curious course that this band took over the course of their career. And I'm happy for them that they got some mainstream success, but there's the song that I know them for is a pretty good song, I think. But like, why just chase trends? Why not try to make a trend? Why not try to just be, this is who we are? And I don't know. Maybe I just hold musicians to too high a standard, hold people to too high a standard. That's why I'm always disappointed. Anyway, leave your comments below if you have thoughts about Razzle / Stained / Lit. Then tell me about it below. Thanks for watching.